across Missouri were stopped almost 59% more than white drivers. Love says he sent the data analysis to police chiefs across the state and adds that many of them have been receptive to the information. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Prime members save more at your Amazon Fresh store. As a Prime member, you'll save 10% on hundreds of items in store, from organic produce to pantry staples to handcrafted pizza. Head to Amazon.com/fresh locations and find a store near you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Everybody connected to Bronny James' medical situation has been quiet the past 2 days. That includes LeBron James and his family, the USC Athletic Department, and the doctors treating Bronny at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Bronny has been hospitalized since suffering a cardiac arrest on Monday while practicing with USC's basketball team. The last update came late Monday afternoon when Bronny was taken out of the intensive care unit. He continues to be listed in stable condition. The Chargers and Rams wrapped up their first full day of training camp on Wednesday. The teams will play each other in their preseason opener on Saturday, August 12th at SoFi Stadium. Friday, September 1st will be Lakers night at Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers will be giving away a special jersey in honor of Kobe Bryant, the number 8 on the front and number 24 on the back. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. Before we commence our program today, should you miss any part of today's show or want to catch up on previous shows, check out the Tavis Smiley podcast, wherever you get your podcast, and listen at your leisure. A great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, Dr. Kelly Carter Jackson was part of the recent teach-in in Florida to protest the anti-woke antics of Florida Governor and GOP presidential candidate Ron DeSantis. We will speak with Dr. Kelly Carter Jackson about the best ways to resist this revisionist American history in hour two. In our third hour,
it's been 7 hours and took your love away. I go out every night and sleep all day since you took your love away. Since you've been gone, I can do whatever I want. I can see whomever I choose. I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant, but nothing, I said nothing can take away these blues, 'cause nothing compares to you.
We will begin hour 3 with a tribute to the trailblazing Irish singer-songwriter Sinead O'Connor, who passed away yesterday at the age of 56. No doubt she will be long remembered for her smash hit rendition of that Prince track, Nothing Compares to You, but also for her political convictions and the varied controversies, including boycotting the Grammys and ripping up that photo of the Pope on NBC's Saturday Night Live. I spoke to Sinead O'Connor from Dublin, Ireland on St. Patrick's Day back in 2012. Sinead was a huge, and I mean huge, Curtis Mayfield fan. Here's a clip of her talking about the links between the civil rights movement here and in Ireland.
Well, it's interesting you should make the comparison between Irish brothers and sisters and brothers and sisters of African descent, or of the descent of any people who have been colonised either by the church, as was in our case, along with England, or by, anyone else. And I always identified, since I was a very small child, actually, with the civil rights movement in the States, because we had the same issue in Ireland. We were coming at it through a different avenue, but the issue was self-esteem, really, which is where Curtis is all about as well, really. But the effect upon the young people of America was and is on self-esteem, actually. And we had the same issue in Ireland, because the specific brand of Catholicism we had, the fundamental teaching in it was that, look, it's a sin to think well of yourself. You're bad, and there's nothing good about you, do you know what I mean? So, we had a lot to kind of overcome spiritually. So we were kind of spiritually colonized and imprisoned far worse than we were by, England, if you like. In fact, I think we share a mischievous nature. That's why I love the Rastas, because that, to me, that it's full of mischief, this whole idea of challenging the church, for example, and saying the office of the Pope is anti-Christian and these kind of things. It was funny to me as a young 17-year-old Irish girl to hear this. I was like, oh my God. Same reason as Muhammad Ali was amazing, because it was a sin what he was saying at the time, which was why we in Ireland adored him. He was on telly going, I'm great, I'm beautiful, I'm fantastic. And in Ireland we were being told it was a sin to think well of ourselves, and so we're like, oh my God. He's like,
I want you to juxtapose to me this point, speaking of the Irish, the mischievous side with the self-esteem side. I'm trying to figure out how it is that one is lacking self-esteem and yet has enough of something to be mischievous.
Well, that's a very good question, but I suppose they say the Irish, they say, are notorious. We have a sense of humour because we've kind of had to. Do you know what I mean? And maybe we're just funny people by nature. Do you know? And I do think having a sense of humour becomes your only alternative sometimes. And sometimes what's wonderful is making a comedy out of something that's frightening you. For example, there used to be a show on telly it was a dreadful, awful show when I was a young woman, and it was called Hello, and it was a terrible show about, and I don't know how you could try to make a comedy out of it, really. It was about, Nazis and the whole awfulness. But what was good about it was like disempowering of the bully, to make a joke out of the bully. It was a show that took the piss out of the Nazis and all. And then there was this show called Father Ted, which, all about priests and everything, a funny show that they wouldn't show in Ireland but became huge through an English show. And it was quite interesting because, again, it kind of just became like, oh my God, we can actually laugh at these guys, you know what I mean? And so the moment you begin to laugh at something which is intimidating you, you actually begin to heal from its negative effect on you, no one, I'm sure, is laughing more at religion's negative effect on Ireland than God. And don't confuse me, anyone. I mean this politely, but I'm someone who is passionate about Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So if I complain about those who are currently running Catholicism, I'm not dissing Jesus. In fact, I'm trying to rescue the poor thing.
Man. More of Sinead O'Connor at the top of hour 3, including why Bob Dylan, Curtis Mayfield, and Bob Marley were her 3 favorite artists, and why Muhammad Ali tops all 3 of them. That's at the top of hour 3. On the B side of hour 3, a conversation about what's driving America's increasing political polarization with USA Today contributor, national leader of the organization Braver Angels, and host of the Reconstruction Project, Sunday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580 here in Los Angeles, John Wood Jr. All that said, we'll commence today's program with 2 more conversations on the B side of this hour. The recent news about Bronny James, son of NBA legend LeBron James, suffering cardiac arrest, makes this a most, I think, propitious time to have a conversation about heart health and chronic disease. Suzette Chamet is board president of Healthy Black Families. She'll join us on the backside of this hour. But our leadoff guest today is CNN senior political analyst and anchor John Avlon, with whom we will talk politics when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dominique DePrima, and there are so many reasons to take out a small business loan. Set yourself up for long-term success with access to credit for operating expenses, equipment, and technology, leasing or financing, and more. Although the process may seem daunting, your U.S. Bank Business Access Advisor can guide you through that process. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
I can't wait for what's next. Even with higher stroke risk due to atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Eliquis, apixaban tablets, reduces stroke risk. It's the #1 cardiologist prescribed blood thinner.
Don't stop taking prescription Eliquis without talking to your doctor, as this may increase your risk of stroke. Eliquis can cause serious and in rare cases fatal bleeding. Don't take Eliquis if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or have antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or take longer for bleeding to stop. A spinal injection while on Eliquis increases risk of blood clots, which may cause paralysis, the inability to move. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or unusual bruising, or if you have tingling, numbness, or muscle weakness. It may increase your bleeding risk if you take medicines such as aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners. Tell your doctor about all planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Want my secret for how to prep for summer getaways and get-togethers and get everything for less? Get to Kohl's. I just shopped their friends and family sale and saved an extra 20% on sunny day essentials, like tees and tanks for my family for $9.99, a cute pair of shorts for me, and everything we needed to set up our patio. So get to Kohl's and save on cool finds for hot days. You'll thank me later. Select styles, 20% offer ends July 30th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Are you working way too hard for way too little? There's never been a better time to consider a career in IT. You could enjoy a recession-resistant career in a rewarding field with plenty of growth opportunities and often flexible work environments. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. You can start your new career in months, not years. Take classes online or on campus, and financial aid is available to qualified students, including the GI Bill. Now's the time. Go to mycomputercareer.edu.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
John Avlon is senior political analyst and anchor at CNN. I'm delighted to have him back on this program. John, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great, Tavis. Great to talk to you, man.
Good to hear your voice again. Thanks for coming on. Let me start with this because I saw a piece that you wrote recently. We'll jump into some other political news that we have to cover today. Everybody's talking about Mitch McConnell, of course, and that moment yesterday where he just froze. And if you saw it, it was actually scary to watch. I'm no fan of Mitch McConnell's politics, but it was scary. to watch him just freeze in that moment yesterday. If you've not seen the video, it's everywhere. So I'm sure you've seen it by now. We'll talk about that and a couple of other things. A judge has put Hunter Biden's plea deal on hold, questioning the details of it. That might be a setback for the president. And Trump's lawyers meeting with prosecutors as these election interference charges, the next indictment looms. They're meeting to try to hammer that out, whatever that means. So a lot to talk about in the few minutes that we have. Let me start, though, John, as I said, with the piece I saw you write recently. And the headline was, "Why a Third-Party 2024 Presidential Ticket is a dangerous gamble." A dangerous gamble. I've talked so far to Cornel West. I've talked to Marianne Williamson. RFK Jr. is on the way here. So I've been talking to these third-party candidates. But unpack your piece for me about why you see it as a dangerous gamble.
Well, I come to this from an unusual perspective. You know, I've been an independent voter for most of my life. I've been an advocate for third parties in some context as a way to decrease polarization, because all my writing, whether it's my books or my columns, at the end of the day, what I've been really focused on in my career is how can we overcome hyperpartisanship and polarization. And I was a co-founder of No Labels over a decade ago. But, you know, you also got to understand politics in the context of its time. And we are a long way from normal right now. The problems of polarization have, of course, gotten worse. The incentive structure is screwed up around the two parties. But right now, we have the even more dire, from my perspective, situation where Donald Trump, former president, tried to overturn our democracy on the basis of a lie, seems in pole position to be the nominee versus the incumbent, Joe Biden, who has a record of bipartisan legislation that is unusual, more than 300 pieces of bipartisan legislation. And so while the rematch may be unpopular, and I think there is a danger we are sleepwalking into the next election, you got to look at the math of electing a president. And a third-party candidate in this situation is, you know, maybe one of the only ways that Donald Trump could get reelected. And so you got to be wide-eyed about that, even if that's nobody's intention. You know, we can go through the history. We can talk about 1912. We can talk about year 2000, when Ralph Nader won 48,000 votes in Florida and Bush won by 537. That's as clear as day. So you got to be wide-eyed about that, even as I think the party's got to wake up to the fact that the parties are more polarized than the American people, and we need to assert that, and the rise of independent voters is evidence of that.
Yeah. I'm all for being wide-eyed. I guess my problem is simply this, that I believe that fellow citizens have the right to self-determination. And to the extent that a third-party candidate receives any significant number of votes, it just suggests that there are fellow citizens who are disappointed with both parties. That is our right. And I'm not so sure, although I'm just playing devil's advocate, I take your point though, John, I'm not so sure that all of our politics should be geared toward making sure that one guy doesn't become president rather than voting what we think are our best interest.
Yeah, I hear that, and I laugh because, of course, you're right. And yet you got to play out the stakes of a second Trump term with regard to the fact that, I mean, go, you know, big articles coming out about how he's trying to figure out how to dismantle all the checks and balances around the executive branch. You're dealing with something uniquely dangerous in our history. We've had demagogues before. We'd have, you know, conservative populist leaders. This is what we're dealing with is very different. And you just got to be wide-eyed about the implication. Let's go back to the 2000 example, because it's the most recent. You know, there were 48,000 people in Florida who thought Al Gore wasn't good enough on the environment, right? 48,000 people in a state he ultimately won by 537, which tipped the presidency to him. And if the environment was your number one issue, I'm all for, you know, having a protest candidacy. I'm all for greater choices. I think we should have proportional representation. And I think there's a right and a wrong way to do third parties. But in that case, you know, those 48,000 people who thought Al Gore wasn't strong enough in the environment, so they voted Green Party with Ralph Nader, I don't think got the better end of their bargain in reality when it comes to the policies they allegedly wanted to support. And if you want to look at how to build a third party, I think the Forward Party is doing an interesting job of it right now. Take a look at the only successful third party we had, which was the anti-slavery Republican Party in the 1850s, which was a moderate progressive party at its time. It began by building in certain states and then ran a candidate for president. And that's, I think, the right way to do this. let's take states where they're not competitive general elections right now, where voters are effectively denied a choice, and let's have more parties. Let's start building viable alternatives. But running someone for president first because of the way the electoral math works, because of the way if no one hits 270, it goes to the House of Representatives, because of the way that each state gets one vote then, there are practical problems that are really fundamental. And I'm not saying it's not good to have choices. I'm not saying it's not good to have an insurance policy.
Right.
And I don't have any problem with ballot access. I'm just saying be wide-eyed about the implications, because you could wake up with a situation that's the opposite of what you want to achieve.
So I guess my pushback would be, and I'm doing this just for the sake of argument, I guess my pushback would be,
Sure.
although I believe in the point very strongly that I'm about to share right now, which is maybe the problem isn't third-party candidates. Maybe the problem is the Electoral College. And we keep focusing on one. We have all these conversations about why Cornel West shouldn't run or why Ralph Nader shouldn't run. Again, people have the right to self-determination. I understand the math. I ain't stupid. But at the end of the day, maybe we're focusing on the wrong thing. Maybe it's not about third-party candidates. It's about the Electoral College. And nobody, apparently, it seems, wants to have that conversation, John.
Well, 100%. Look, the way we get out of this mess is by we have a screwed up incentive structure. You want to change the game, you've got to change the rules, and we got to deal with that directly. I couldn't agree with you more. And the problem with the Electoral College, of course, is it's in the Constitution.
Sure,
you got to
sure.
deal with the constitutional amendment.
Yep.
But Jesse Wegman wrote a great book about this that I highly recommend. Let the People Choose the President. If you ask me, the way we get out of this mess we're in right now, I would say it's a combination of end the rigged system of redistricting, so you get competitive general elections again, open primaries, so candidates can't just play to the base, and ranked choice voting. So there's a disincentive for candidates to try to destroy their opponents because they want to win over their opponents. And I'd also say proportional representation of delegates. So it's not winner take all in these states. What the Republican Party did right now, they could actually structurally say, like, your general point, I couldn't agree with more. We got to reform our electoral system to make it more representative of the people as a whole.
Yeah,
100%.
We agree on this, though. Gerrymandering, I think, is a threat to our very democracy. And so your point about redistricting and its connection to gerrymandering, you and I are simpatico on that. I think, again, it's one of the greatest threats to our democracy. And speaking of proportional voting, as you know, Republicans haven't fixed that problem yet, but Democrats did some years ago. I raised this to remind the audience that Barack Obama wouldn't, I've said it many times, I remind the audience, Barack Obama would never have been the nominee and therefore would never become your first black president if you're not counting Bill Clinton. Obama would never have been your first black president if Jesse Jackson had not run in 84 and 88. Jesse is the one who forced the change in the Democratic Party from to proportional voting from winner takes all. I say that because I was in Chicago last weekend, spent some time with Jesse Jackson. He now has Parkinson's. It's advancing, and I just hate seeing him in that condition. His mind, though, is sharp as ever, and I always want to remind people that Barack Obama is not your first black president. If Jesse Jackson had not forced the Democratic Party to change the rules to proportional voting from winner take all, Obama would have lost to Hillary. She would have been the nominee. He never would have been president. I digress. Back to your point about so Republicans ought to do the same thing, I think. Back to your point about no labels. You mentioned you were one of the co-founders of it a decade ago. I ain't mad at you about that. But here's what I do have a problem with. Any group that calls itself No Labels troubles me. I quote once again my friend Jim Hightower out of Texas. The only thing you find in the middle of the road is a dead armadillo. I don't like the idea of people telling me they have no labels, because that suggests to me, I could be wrong, but it suggests to me that there aren't a set of, how might I put it, there are not a set of immutable principles by which you would govern. When you say no labels, I mean, you got to stand for something. You got to stand for something, John.
Yeah. So look, let's dig into that. First of all, I don't love the name. I've never loved the name.
Right.
For a lot of reasons, one of which is you don't begin with a negative.
Right.
So that's
exactly.
one. Second thing, the idea behind it is let's get to understand each other on the basis of our common humanity, on the basis of common values, and the fact we're all Americans, rather than all of a sudden putting each other in positional bargaining against groups, which gets in the ways of our reasoning together.
Right.
Which is why one of the good things they've done is form this problem solvers caucus in Congress, where people get together across party lines, and some are pretty conservative, some are pretty liberal, but they all believe that you got to find a way to reason together to solve problems, and that's the kind of larger amen to that. But you know, your point about, look, this is part of the problem about the place we're in as a country, is that our politics have become tribal in a way that they're largely united by hating your perception of the other guy. And we got to rise above that.
Yeah.
And that's what great leadership does. And you've written about great leaders who elevate your common humanity and connect a progressive agenda with a deeper patriotism, that goes outside all the bunting of patriotism. And this is where the history is really important too. You know, you were talking earlier about the election reforms and the role that Jesse Jackson played.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want to really deep cut, but last time we talked was about my book on Lincoln.
Sure.
You go back and look at the way we had 3 constitutional amendments that were undone at the end during Reconstruction and the Jim Crow, that were largely based on the rigged system of redistricting, voter intimidation, violence, voter suppression. You know, all this stuff is how we got in this mess. Mm-hmm. And so it shouldn't feel abstract to folks if they remember the history they haven't been fully taught. We got to study the Reconstruction a lot more than we do now.
Yeah, I hear you. And don't disagree on that at all. Got 4 minutes to go here. Let me do a rapid fire round if I can. We start with Mitch McConnell. This video, as I said, was just arresting to sort of watch yesterday at a press conference. Mitch McConnell is speaking, and he just froze. Mid-sentence, just froze and just stood there. It was clear he didn't know where he was. He didn't know what he was saying. He just stopped mid-sentence and just stared. And that stare in his eyes said everything. We know he's fallen multiple times this year. We know he had a concussion earlier. He did come back yesterday and answer questions, and all he said was, "I'm fine." He wouldn't get into what happened. He just said, "I'm fine." But this is troubling to me for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is, with all due respect, and I see it on the left and the right. I could talk about McConnell. I could talk about Dianne Feinstein. Why is it that these people don't know when to go home, John?
Yeah, look, you raised a great point. You framed it, I thought, exactly right at the top. It was scary to watch. He was trapped inside himself for a second there.
Yeah.
And you divided, I disagree with his politics, but I care, I wish him well as a person.
Sure.
We don't do that enough.
Exactly.
But your larger point is right. We got a gerontocracy in our politics because of this screwed up incentive structure in part, where people can hold on to offices indefinitely because they're not really competitive general elections in many states or congressional districts.
Yeah.
And it ends up stopping the kind of citizen-led legislature we need. So you're right to call it out.
Yeah. Let me go to this judge who has put the Hunter Biden plea deal on hold. We thought we thought this Hunter Biden stuff was behind us. I'm trying to juxtapose the fact that the judge, by the way, appointed by Trump, has not accepted this plea deal that both sides had agreed to. She's not accepted it as yet. Juxtaposing, or not that's the wrong word. Let me pair that. That's what I'm looking for. Let me pair this news with the comments by Kevin McCarthy, the speaker, earlier this week, that the House is moving closer toward a Biden impeachment inquiry. How do you read this development?
Well, look, the Biden impeachment threat is just fodder for the far right to keep them in line. It's not rooted in reality, any objective definition of high crimes and misdemeanors. This judge's decision, it comes down to what seems to be bad lawyering. They left ambiguous whether or not the plea deal would pardon him for anything, and they didn't seem aware of the fact that came out yesterday that the DOJ, there's an ongoing investigation having to do with some of the foreign money he raised. You got to bifurcate the two. It's fine to look into it, but the problem is, Republicans are sort of trying to fire this up for political purposes, and the DOJ is trying to depoliticize it.
Yeah.
And those two things are totally cross purposes. So it's not a good day for Hunter Biden or the Biden campaign, but hopefully it'll add some clarity down the road. But it was a total car crash yesterday.
Got 90 seconds left here. Trump lawyers, we are told, are meeting right now in Washington with Jack Smith's team. We know, based on the letter that Donald Trump received that he told us about, this third indictment is on the way. I'm not sure this meeting is going to stop anything. I suspect that indictment is still coming, John Avlon.
Yeah, I mean, you got to assume that based on the target letter, and then you got to actually look at what the indictment says. What are the charges? What are the details? What are the receipts they got? Who has spoken to them? Actually reading that's where the news comes in. And don't forget, this is not about politics. It's not about whether he benefits or not in the short run. Forget about that. This is about American history, and this is about the no one's above the law. So read it carefully.
Yep. John Avlon, CNN, senior political analyst and anchor and author of a brilliant book about Abraham Lincoln, who we discussed, as I said, last time he was on the program. John, good to have you back. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you, sir.
You too.
Thank you now.
You too, sir.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
I'm Ree Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network.
We are in the midst of a historic heat wave.
More than 100 million people across the United States are now under heat alerts.
This has been the worst summer in recent memory.
The heat wave will affect the northern part of the country, with New York City expecting record highs in the upper 90s.
Depression getting worse, about anxiety getting worse, for sleep getting worse. All of those things are affected by extreme heat.
Officials say Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington, D.C. could experience dangerous heat with temperatures reaching triple digits.
That's why experts are saying take this seriously. Make sure that you take cool showers. Don't use a fan as your source of cooling, because that can give you a false sense of security without actually cooling down your body.
And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 news, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Headed through Atwater Village, troubles on the 5, North 5 at Glendale Boulevard. Stalled vehicle in the center divider. We're seeing a slow drive coming away from the 10 freeway. A little bit busy at Pacoima. Broken down vehicle on the 118 east, eastbound 118 at the 210. That is stuck in the second lane from the left there. Bellflower, it's going to be a ringer on the 91 east at Bellflower Boulevard. Looks like we have a crash onto the right shoulder. Cerritos had a stalled vehicle from earlier at 91 west near Artesia Bloomfield. That is gone, but we're still seeing the busy commute here.
Prime members save more at your Amazon Fresh store. As a Prime member, you'll save 10% on hundreds of items in store, from organic produce to pantry staples to handcrafted pizza. Head to Amazon.com/fresh locations and find a store near you.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Everybody connected to Bronny James' medical situation has been quiet the past 2 days. That includes LeBron James and his family, the USC Athletic Department, and the doctors treating Bronny at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Bronny has been hospitalized since suffering a cardiac arrest on Monday while practicing with USC's basketball team. The last update came late Monday afternoon when Bronny was taken out of the intensive care unit. He continues to be listed in stable condition. The Chargers and Rams wrapped up their first full day of training camp on Wednesday. The teams will play each other in their preseason opener on Saturday, August 12th at SoFi Stadium. Friday, September 1st will be Lakers night at Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers will be giving away a special jersey in honor of Kobe Bryant, the number 8 on the front and number 24 on the back. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Be ready for extreme heat in your area. On days when extreme heat is expected, take action to keep your home as cool as possible. Set your air conditioner to 78 degrees. If AC isn't available, close blinds and curtains on all windows and run fans counterclockwise. Or find your nearest cooling center. Transportation help may be available. Learn more at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Can you believe it's already back to school season? To get you ready, Chase is holding a family event at its Crenshaw Community Center branch on Wednesday, August 2nd from 4 to 8 p.m. We're giving away backpacks full of school supplies and other goodies to the first 1,000 attendees. There will be activities for the whole family, from financial health workshops to lawn games and crafts for all ages. Chase, we make your back-to-school dreams happen. J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Yeah.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Conversation right now about the recent news about Bronny James, son of NBA star LeBron James, suffering cardiac arrest at 18. I think that story makes this a most propitious time for a conversation about heart health and chronic disease, which we'll conduct right about now. Suzette Chamet is board president of Healthy Black Families, and I'm pleased to have her on this program. Suzette, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
If I complained, I'd be an end great. I am doing well and delighted to be in dialogue with you. I think the general consensus is it ain't like I can speak for all black folk. It ain't like they meet at my house on Sundays to give me the agenda for the week. But I think the general consensus is not just in Black America, but I think beyond that if a guy who's 18 who is this healthy, playing for USC, son of a legend, LeBron James, if a guy like that can suffer a cardiac arrest, and we all in trouble. And I say that not knowing all the details of this case. We don't know what brought this on. We may find out something in the coming days that shocks all of us. Who knows? But at the moment, all we know is that an 18-year-old, otherwise apparently healthy young black man suffered cardiac arrest on a basketball court. Again, my view is, people I've talked to, is that people just seem to be a little concerned. If it can happen to him, then we ain't got a shot. The rest of us who are not as healthy as 18-year-olds are. What say you?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on the show today. It's really an honor to be here. And I will say that I don't think that we don't have a shot. I think that there are some things that we can do in order to reduce our risk for chronic disease. So, I am a public health leader trained at Tulane School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine, and I've had the privilege of working with some incredible people and organizations in my 25 career. And as you stated, I am the board president of Healthy Black Families located in Berkeley, and the founder of Food Indie, which is all about food independence and people getting closer to their food. And a big part of what I have recognized in my career is that these chronic diseases are often tied to our food and our food sources. And I want to impress upon people that it isn't just about preventive screenings that we have once a year or even twice a year or every other year, but that we manage our food on a daily basis and we know where it comes from. So your listeners can find out more about what I do at befoodindy.com. That's befoodindy.com, where I talk about people getting much closer to their food. Now, I want to offer my prayers to Bronny James and his family, who I'm sure are shocked by him having heart issues at such a young age, just like we all are. Nobody's prepared for something like that, especially when screenings for heart disease generally come so much later in our lives. And I hope that Bronny has access to unbiased health care and a team of people who genuinely care about his healing and long-term well-being, not just getting him well enough to play basketball. Because as an 18-year-old young man, he'll have life after he retires from his basketball career, and he'll need a healthy heart. And so I certainly hope that his medical team's goal is to think about his life long-term and what he'll need to get his heart back to health.
One thing is certain. I don't know if they're unbiased, but they are the best. When your daddy's LeBron James, you can rest assured you're gonna get the best health care that money can buy. We'll come back to that point in a moment. You see where I'm going with that. But let me go to the point that you
I
started.
do.
Let me see. Let me go to the point though that you started with the point about food and food sources. I always love when experts come on the program, and I'm not saying this to demean you in any way or to diminish you. That's not my style, obviously. But I always love when people tell me and tell us that our health goes back to our food and our food sources. I get that. I'm not naive or stupid about that. And yet you know as well as I do that in the society that we live today, unless you're growing your stuff, and I'll let you respond to it, unless you're growing stuff in your backyard, and a lot of times folk in the inner city don't even have the spaces to do that. We complain all the time about a lack of green spaces. Unless you're growing your own stuff, the best stuff costs more. So one, it costs more. Number two, you ain't nowhere near it. But people always come and tell us that our health is connected to our food and our food sources as if that's an easy thing to accomplish for poor people who live in inner cities.
So this is exactly to your point, which is that we do have to grow some of our own food and in small spaces. You know, I offer ways that people can do it indoors, that they can do it on decks. The kinds of food forests that I'm talking about can be grown in pots, in, 3 or 5 pots. And you don't have to grow all of your food. You just have to grow a little bit, and your neighbor grows a little bit, and somebody down the street grows a little bit. And collectively, we have more healthy foods. Now, I understand, when we talk about local and organic food, that is more expensive, certainly. But once we get our systems together at a community level, I do believe that we can improve access to food. And let's talk about what is accessible to us now. You don't have to look any further than our convenience stores or your closest grocery store. So I'd like for everybody who's listening today to imagine the closest store to you. Grocery stores will have a large fruit and vegetable section, a variety of colors and choices, while convenience stores are packed with foods that are full of sugar, salt, fat, tobacco, alcohol, all things that we know will make us sick if we eat them too much. And the food industry knows this. Food has been used as a weapon for generations. And unless we take it seriously, it's going to continue to be a weapon. And that is why we see so much chronic disease in our own communities. And so I'm asking folks to take it a little more seriously and not just look at the financial cost, but how can we get access to seeds, for example? How can we think differently about how we view expense? Because diabetes is expensive too. Obesity is expensive.
No question.
Bad joints, expensive. And so, if we can create networks within our communities for sharing seeds, for sharing soil, for learning how to compost, for teaching one another some of the knowledge that we've had for centuries, and reach back into our ancestral practices, because that's where we're going to remember what we were brought here for, was our skills and our knowledge. And contrary to what the conversation is about, slavery taught people skills. It is that we were brought here because of our skills. And so I don't want us to miss that, and our connection to food and how it can heal us.
I'm not naive.
Beginning in childhood.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm not naive in asking this question, obviously, but food is neutral. And if food is being used as a weapon, then somebody is weaponizing food against us. Who's doing that?
I would say that the federal government certainly is. I mean, when we talk about nutrition programs and the ways in which we are being fed, the food that is being grown in the United States today on these industrial farms has lower nutritional value than it did 50 years ago. Part of that has to do with our soil being depleted significantly, continuing to put pesticides and fertilizers in our food. So, I tell people all the time, if your fruit is perfect, if it looks perfect, it's probably got a lot of pesticides. And there's something that I refer to on my website and my social media that's called the Dirty Dozen. I don't know if you've heard of that, but these are the 12 fruits and vegetables that have over 100 pesticides on each of them.
Hold that thought. When we come forward, we'll let you run the list. So if you don't have it memorized, which I'm sure you probably do, you can go to your website. And when we come forward, I know the audience is curious to know what those 12 are. So we'll get Suzette Chamet, the board president of Healthy Black Families, to unpack what those 12 fruits are for us and a great deal more when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
MC Light, or AARP, hip-hop, the cultural phenomenon that took New York by storm in 1973, is celebrating 50 years of rocking mics and crowds. Whether you're a ride-or-die hip-hop head or simply curious about its origins, check out the latest issue of AARP the magazine. It celebrates this incredible milestone with a featured story brimming with fun hip-hop facts and history. Head over to aarp.org/black community to learn more.
Community is more than where you live. It's the people in it who go above and beyond to help it thrive. During the 50th anniversary of hip-hop and the 75th anniversary of Black radio, AARP recognizes the members, volunteers, people, and partners giving back to our communities. We believe when our efforts drive change for the greater good, we all thrive together. To learn more about how AARP supports efforts to keep our communities thriving, visit aarp.org/black community.
Civil rights leader John Lewis honored with the Forever Stamp. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News. Civil rights activist and Congressman John Lewis was revealed as the late public figure who's being honored on the United States Postal Service newest Forever Stamp. Lewis, who died 3 years ago, was a civil rights hero who was in the United States House of Representatives for Georgia's 5th Congressional District from 1987 until his death in 2020. From the Nashville sit-ins in the 60s to the Freedom Rides to the March on Washington to being a pillar of the civil rights movement, Lewis was a force who deserves such an honor. And for $9.90 on USPS.com, you can purchase your book of 15 stamps that honors the life and memory of Lewis. I'm Maisha Cairo for KBLA Talk 1580, and that is your K-Black Minute News.
In our community, mental health struggles can sometimes go unnoticed. The suicide rate among Black youth has risen faster than any other ethnic group. Only 1 in 3 African Americans who need mental health care receives it. African American women are only half as likely as their Caucasian counterparts to seek professional mental health services. Even those who guide us spiritually can sometimes face their own challenges. 45% of pastors say they've experienced depression or burnout to the extent they need to take a leave of absence from ministry. As people of faith, it's time to acknowledge it's okay not to be okay. You can pray and get help. Visit normalizehelp.org for more information and resources. Join us in raising mental health awareness in our community. Funded by the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health and the Champion Counseling Center of Faithful Central Bible Church.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
All right, Suzette Chamet, board president of Healthy Black Families. Give me the dirty dozen.
So I'll give you a partial list, and then I'm going to send you to my Instagram page where you can get the full list and the clean 15. So strawberries, spinach, pears, peaches, and peppers are 5 that are on the dirty dozen list. And you can find the rest at my Instagram, which is Reduce, Reuse, Soothe. And I'm not sure if you can include that in your show notes, but there's also the Clean 15, which are 15 fruits and vegetables that do not have all of those pesticides on them. And that's something else that I really want to emphasize with people is that when we eat all of those pesticides, that also contributes to our risk. And, you know, generally when people get a fruit or a vegetable, they rinse it under water, but that's not enough to rinse away all of the pesticides. That is a fact. We do a quick rinse, And then we take a bite, and we're just swallowing those pesticides. And like I said, that's over 200 per piece of fruit.
Just because I'm curious, what is it about the fruits that are on your Dirty Dozen list versus the 15 clean ones? Why are those fruits full of pesticides? I'm just curious.
They are the ones that bugs may like to eat more. They're sweeter, strawberries and pears and peaches. And so they have to be sprayed so that they look really good when we go to the grocery store. If you ever notice, strawberries generally look pretty shiny and they don't have any holes in them, nothing like that, right? If you go to a regular grocery store. And because of how many seeds they have, they also hold a lot of the pesticides and other contaminants. And so people don't want to pick up strawberries that don't look good. So they spray them a lot to make them look good. And also the shiny fruit, those are covered in waxes. So you have to know what it is that you're buying so that you can reduce your risk. And I understand that many people will say, we can't afford to grow food. We can't afford to buy local and organic. And I'm saying that we need to reframe how we think about growing food, and that maybe not everybody has their hands in the soil. At Food Indie, we do teach people about other ways that they can support being in the garden. I mean, even if it is to be outdoors to improve your mental health. Everybody needs to be outdoors a few times a week at least to improve their mental wellness. So some people will say they don't want to get dirty. I always say there's gloves, put on gloves and boots. But reconnecting with our food is going to be a significant contribution to better health and reducing our risk for chronic disease, because increasing fresh foods in your diet helps your circulation. It helps your organs function better. And that's what we're really going for. So I'm going to challenge anybody who says it's expensive to just think about the expenses of not being able to live through to all the important family events that you have in your life,
Yep. So speaking of expensive, when we come forward, we'll come right back to that point because, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can rest assured that Bronny James is right now receiving access to the best health care that money can buy, because his daddy is LeBron James. All the rest of us don't have those options. We'll talk about that part, as we say, when we come forward with Suzette Chamet on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Hey, life doesn't stop when cancer starts. After diagnosis, treatment is vital. But for some, just getting there, to appointments, chemo, or radiation, is a major challenge. You can change that. Volunteer to give rides with the American Cancer Society Road to Recovery program. Driving for a few hours of your day can make a life-saving difference for someone with cancer. Visit cancer.org/drive to learn more.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
I'm James Alexander, a proud member of AARP. 1967, I was 17. That spring, my friends, the Barcades, and I made Soulfinger. It was a hit. Number 3 on the charts. That summer, we became the great Otis Redding's band. First gig, the famed Apollo. That fall, we toured. That winter found me in a morgue identifying the bodies of my bandmates and Otis Redding. My music and their memories bring me joy. The Bar-Kays forever.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black Joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/Black community.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Roll Charmin ultra strong when you drop in the beat. It cleans with way less effort on your seat. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Yeah, roll it, drop it. Charmin flows extra strong from the road. Your butt hella clean while you're sitting on the bowl. Yeah, it's all you need for that bathroom groove. Get you in and out without nothing to prove.
Charmin Ultra Strong cleans better so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Suzette Chamet, I take your point earlier, as I'm sure the audience does as well, that it is far more expensive to be unhealthy, far more expensive to not be around for those special occasions in our lives than it is to take care of ourselves in real time. You either pay on the front side or you pay on the back side. Much better to pay on the front side. I take your point. And yet, when we do have these moments, because we are not human and divine, we're just human. If we're not Bronny James with a dad named LeBron James who can afford to get access to the best health care in the world, that's a real challenge. So it seems to me, if we're talking about healthy Black families, which is what your work is all about, some of that conversation has to be about how Black people, and I know we have Obamacare, and yet there are still too many Black people, too many poor people in this country who still don't have access to high quality health care.
That's right. And let me say, I don't know if Serena Williams, Beyonce, or LeBron James have the most money. But what I will say is that Serena Williams and Beyonce both had challenging health experiences after they gave birth. And it wasn't their money that got them the kind of attention that they needed. As a matter of fact, they were neglected at times that they needed more support. So I don't think that money buys you good health care. I think it buys you insurance, but I do not think that it compels people necessarily to take better care at the bedside. So that being said, we all have to advocate for better care. No matter how much money we have, we need somebody who can be with us in a hospital setting, even if we're going in for a screening. We need to have more partnership within our health visits. So you take somebody with you to the doctor so that they can listen also for you. And we have to begin talking about healthcare much more explicitly than hiding what's going on with us, hiding our symptoms, hiding our diagnoses. Because what happens is we end up being alone and not always understanding. So a big part of my work has been in health communication. So have you ever been to the doctor and they say to you, okay, take this prescription or go get this x-ray or go to the lab, and you're wondering, well, why? I don't even know why I'm having to do this. But you do it anyway because the doctor knows best. And I say that we have to take back our own care by partnering with people that we trust when we go into the health system so that we can get some accountability on their part. So I agree that LeBron James has more money to pay for health care, but I wouldn't say that alone is going to guarantee that his son gets the best health care.
No, I take your point, and I can split hairs with you on what money does give you access to, but the latter part of what you said I do agree with, and I would just add as another exhibit why I believe it, the notion that money doesn't necessarily get you great health care, it gives you good insurance. Many are aware of the story right now of Cedars-Sinai. Cedars-Sinai is the #1 hospital in California, the #2 hospital in the nation, and they are being sued right now. It's ugly. They've been sued. They've settled. They've settled that one case, and now they're being investigated by the government for just disrespecting Black women and their maternal health at Cedars-Sinai. So you can't get to Cedars if you ain't got some really good insurance. So you get to see this because you
Right.
got great insurance. And if you're a black woman having a baby, you get there and they still maltreat you. So to your point, having money does not necessarily guarantee that you're going to get great health care, even when you're in the #1 hospital here in California, the #2 hospital in the nation. I digress. Our guest has been Suzette Chamet. She is the board president of Healthy Black Families. Suzette, good to have you on. All the best to you.
Thank you so much.
When we come forward, more of Tavis Smiley.